Welcome to Stories from Social Care Leaders, a podcast hosted by the University of Salford, which is dedicated to amplifying the voices of those shaping the future of social care. So in this first series, we're focusing on kind of strategic level perspectives with a special emphasis on social care nursing. We'll be speaking with key figures in the field, discussing topics such as policy, education, research, to really kind of highlight the ideas and experiences that are driving change. So today we're joined by Dr. Zena Aldridge, a social care nurse fellow within the NIHR. So it's great to have you here, Zena. I don't know if you want to introduce yourself and your role a wee bit.
Yeah, thanks, Siobhan. So I'm a proud social care nurse by background. I started my career in domiciliary care nearly 30 years ago now. I always hate saying that because it sounds like such a long time ago, but it is in effect reality. I went off and did my mental health nurse training back in the early 2000s and I've spent much of my career working outside of the NHS. So I've worked for local authority, charities, independent sector. And you know, my primary role has always been working with older people, people living with dementia. But as time's gone on, I was fortunate enough to be able to do my PhD and postdoc. I've really wanted to kind of inspire other nurses to get more involved in research, particularly social care nurses who often don't have the same opportunities that perhaps some of their NHS peers do. So yeah, I now have this role of social care nurse fellow in the nursing and midwifery office at NIHR, and my role is very much about that, looking at opportunities of how we can raise a profile of social care nursing and ensure that more nurses are able to feel more included in research and get involved and see that they have a place in it and realise that research doesn't happen in academic institutions and, you know, it's something we do every day in our regular practice. So it's really, yeah, to kind of demystify it and get everybody on board.
Oh, amazing. So I guess you've started to touch on it there, but I guess in your perspective, why is it so important for social care nurses in particular to be research active? Because historically they've kind of been left out of that space, I guess.
I think there's a whole plethora of reasons, really. I think, you know, the role of social care nursing has been changing, you know, rapidly in terms of the acuity and complexity of the people that we support. And I think one of the challenges is because we haven't been so involved in research, it's really hard to define and justify and articulate what we do and what we do really well. And I think that almost starts to feed into this disparity that's seen between perhaps social care nursing and you know, more clinical in inverted commas areas of practice. So for me, it's almost about, well, actually, how do we ensure that we can articulate what we do is evidence-based? And if we haven't got the evidence, how do we start to ask those research questions that we start to create the evidence for what it is we do? Because I think until we start to become more research active and more visible in that space, it's going to be really hard for us to challenge those inequalities that are there at the moment. But I always think, you know, research is about problem solving. And I often hear that social care nurses say, well, you know, it's beyond me. And I think, actually, research is such a broad church. We've got research with a small r and research with a big R. So I think part of it is about actually nurses understanding that every day they are doing research. We do person-centred and relationship-centred care. And we have a person in front of us with a need, and there could be multiple ways of meeting that need because we don't do algorithms and decision trees. So we think about all the different options that we can do, and we meet it to that individual. And I think if we start to think of that as a very purist, you know, very, very sort of research with a small r, everybody's skilled in doing that. They're doing it all the time in practice. So it's about how do we build on that and build that confidence to really showcase the value of social care nursing, which is amazing. You know, there's so much amazing work going on out there.
Yeah, and I guess you start to highlight there some of the barriers that kind of exist in thinking about why social care nurses might not be research active. So when you think about how those barriers can or should be overcome, is it, as you say, kind of starting at the first step and kind of having
I think
conversations with those nurses about what research actually is.
absolutely, and I think it's about developing opportunities that recognise that social care nurses have been disadvantaged and underserved in opportunities to become more involved in research. I mean, even if we think at the bare necessities, for a lot of social care nurses, it's incredibly hard to access journals. You know, they may not have an Athens account, they may not be able to access some of the wider publications. So you're already on the back foot compared to peers. So for me, part of my role is very much about supporting those nurses who are in practice to, understand that they have a place in research, whether it be from introducing the people that they work with to research opportunities, if there are any appropriate trials or research activity that's going on that's relevant to them, encouraging them to be part of that. It may well be that they want to be participants themselves, or just feel that they can start to bring some questions to the forefront that academics might want to pick up and research further down the line. So I think research has been done to social care for such a long time, but not with or for social care. So the more we can kind of get that bottom up approach, I think the more the visibility will be there, the role models will be there, and people will find it something that they might want to feel more included in. But I think we've got to build that basic research literacy and confidence, because it's not about competence. It's about, almost translating the research language into a language that the nurses understand and feel that they can have a part in. So, I think we need to think about research journal clubs and, being able to critique a paper and see how that paper is relevant to how we deliver clinical practice in social care. So, you've got me started, Siobhan. Once I'm a bit like her.
I love it.
Box, you can tell. I have to say, I was one of those nurses that never thought that research was for me. I didn't see it as something that I would do. I always thought it was for these incredibly intelligent people who sat in universities, and I wasn't one of those people. And I found my passion in my clinical practice, and that enabled me to be curious and ask questions, and that led me down this path. So, and I've met lots of nurses who are equally capable and probably wanting to do that.
It's amazing, isn't it? Even when we've been doing research here with incredible nurses in care homes, during the research, they will feel like they're not doing research, and we have to say, you're doing it now, you're doing it anyway. But
absolutely.
we are doing it together. So I think it is difficult for them to not think or to understand that their day-to-day practice equates to that. Yeah.
Absolutely. But I think it has been, I think sometimes it's felt like, I said, research is being done to social care to scrutinise it, to kind of make it more efficient, and actually that's where we need to redress the balance, because so often social care nurses will say that they've got these issues in practice, but nobody picks those up and helps them understand A, what evidence is already out there, and B, where the gaps are. And I have to say, I think one of the other big challenges is there's a lot of evidence that sits in, libraries and repositories that doesn't get to where it needs to go. We do lots of big research studies, and actually there's probably some really fundamental things that if we did that knowledge mobilization and get that evidence down to practice, it could make people feel more part of it. But that very rarely happens, and I think that's a real shame as well. So I think we've got a big gap in the middle where we could perhaps be drawing down what we already know in a way that's meaningful.
Yeah, and think more. I was just about to ask how we might think about universities, or I guess academic kind of institutions, better supporting social care nurses in order to get involved in research. I guess in some way then that might be thinking or enabling or kind of empowering people to think differently or more creatively about how we disseminate research and engage with communities with our research, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Asking the sector what what they want, what they need. How often does that happen? Often, as I said, those research proposals are put together without the intervention or engagement of the social care sector. And I think, how many studies have we seen fail where actually if the sector had been asked, they'd probably say that will never work because, so we could have, that could have been refined in a different way. So I think that's really, really important. And actually, how many HEIs have got social care nurses working within their schools of nursing, within their research departments, so that social care nurses can see there are people like them who go into those roles? Because if you go into those institutions and you don't see people like you, who don't talk like you, who don't speak the language of social care nursing, you almost think it's a closed shop. So I think, I think there's an onus on HEIs as well to be more inclusive and enable social care nurses to be more visible in those spaces as well.
Yeah, totally, that makes sense. And I know this is, I'd read something recently about the role of mentoring in helping social care nurses become more research active, and I know you've got some work upcoming that speaks to that, which is exciting.
Yeah, it is really exciting. And I think mentoring is great, but you need the right mentors. So, if you are going to be a social care nurse that wants to progress your career, in or not necessarily your career, but, you might just want to feel more able to see research as part of your core role. You need people who speak your language and understand your area of practice. There's no point someone from a clinical trials facility who does very sort of lab-based research to come out into social care. It's not going to work. So what we need to do is ensure that the mentors out there are prepared and equipped and understand social care. So I think there's kind of a two-tiered approach. Those who are absolutely out there doing research, we need to remind them of what the needs of the social care workforce are. I mean, I'm really excited, and I can announce that we're just able to have a project running that we're going to be starting to launch, hopefully in April, if I can get everything finished off quickly, where we'll be able to have social care nurses who are in practice, given opportunities to become research champions in their areas. So being able to get some support and mentorship from a more senior social care nurse in their area to perhaps spend some time with other research nurses in other areas, maybe in a community setting or a mental health setting, wherever their interests lie. Learning how to perhaps pick up some journals and be a bit more critical and see how that applies to their practice, and really start to find their feet in the research world, in a safe and supportive environment. And we'll also be having some social care nurse internships that will mean that nurses can spend one day a week focusing on research activity, perhaps putting together an improvement project in practice or a literature review around an area of clinical practice of interest to them. But again, with that mentorship from others who are perhaps the next career rung up the ladder. So, trying to find a pipeline and a means of progressing. So it's not just here you are, here's a piecemeal opportunity. It's like, actually, this could then open the door to the next opportunity. And building the bottom rungs of the career ladder, but which for so long have felt a little bit out of reach to get to the bottom existing ladder rung, if that makes sense. So I think if you've not been given the opportunity and the tools that some of our peers have, it's always going to feel like you can't reach that bottom rung of the ladder. So let's build those rungs and let's get more and more social care nurses through those sort of opportunities that do exist, but are slightly more challenging if you've not come from the right background.
Yeah, amazing. So exciting. And I guess, like you say, I think a lot of social care nurses will have a wealth of skills and experience that means they're more than qualified to start thinking about engaging in research. I guess, what do you think those skills and experiences are that people might either want to develop or work on, or kind of even recognise that they already have them, I guess?
I think what I found is a lot of nurses who perhaps don't necessarily aspire to be involved in research or don't recognise that they're involved in it. A lot of it's about curiosity and wanting to improve care, wanting to do things differently. if you see something that you think needs improvement, that questioning of, well, why do we do it that way? And could we do it differently? And I think there are I think the majority of social care nurses actually think in that way, is how can we make it better? How can we improve outcomes for this person? I guess a lot of what we do is less measurable because it's less sort of task focused in the very clinical sense. It's not, we're not always measured by clinical indicators in terms of a person's well-being. So it is a little bit more challenging, but I've met some fantastic social care nurses, particularly over the last couple of years while doing this job, who are really research active, and often feel very isolated in that because there might not be, a big group of research nurses in social care in their vicinity, but trying to pull those strands together and build that community and showcase those role models, I think is going to be amazing. Which leads me to another opportunity. I'm always one for a plug here, Siobhan. Is I have got a wonderful agreement from the NHR Nurse and Midwifery Office that we are going to be sponsoring. And the applications are open now, so I hope people will apply for this. We're sponsoring a Care Talk Awards in the Social Care Top 30, which is a social care nurse research-led programme. So we're really inviting applications from social care nurses across the piece, no matter where they work, whether that be in care homes, domiciliary care, or some of our other specialist services. And the idea is that we give them a platform to showcase some of the great work that is already going on in social care nursing. Because it can sometimes be difficult to compete with NHS colleagues who might be doing big studies in big facilities. So this is a real opportunity for social care nurses to showcase what they're delivering. So yeah, I'm really hopeful that we'll get a real range of applications here. And of course, if there's anyone who wants to nominate anyone who might be a bit reluctant to nominate themselves, then please do.
Oh, yeah, that's a nice act of kindness. You've got an amazing colleague. When's it open till, Zena?
No, that's a very good question. So it opened, I think it might even be open till sort of July, August. I have amazing, to say. Yeah, so it's there is a little while. So it's not a really it's not War and Peace that you have to write in your application. And I think it's just a really lovely opportunity, and I have to say I cannot wait to be looking at some of these applications, because I think it will be quite an eye-opener to some of the sector about how much vibrant work there is going on within the research space in social care nursing.
Yeah, definitely. It's a good I think I'd not recognised that before this role, to be honest, really. But when you start digging deeper, talking to people, go into those types of things, it is amazing to hear about just like you say, I think I'd not thought about it in terms of curiosity, but I think it is that just asking questions, kind of continually thinking of incredible, innovative ways to ask things, challenge things, question how things can be done better. So yeah, I'm sure you'll get some amazing applications in.
I have to say, if you're one of those nurses, that this is a great opportunity to find your niche to come into research. I was always the person when I did my training as a student nurse, where I'd always be the person sort of 30 seconds before the end of the lecture that was still asking questions, and going into work environments where I go, well, why do you do it that way? And can't we do it better? And often seen as very challenging, but it wasn't about being difficult. It was about wanting to know more and understand and question. And I have to say, research has enabled me to really find my niche in that space, because I'm constantly asking those questions and trying to find out some different ways of doing it if I think there's a better way, and working with an amazing set of colleagues as well. I'm not a pure researcher. I'm a nurse that does some research and gets involved in research. So I've met some wonderful academics as well who really want to embrace social care nursing and support us in developing as a community. So I think, again, it's about breaking those barriers down and talking to people that you might not necessarily feel confident in talking to.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of not getting out of that silo, really, is it? But it's not necessarily a silo, but the kind of power of collaboration, I guess, really, generally.
Definitely.
Mixing with different groups. The most I've learned is in this role in the past 6 months with a lot of people who are not from my field, like the things that I'll learn from going to different meetings or conferences about this topic is just incredible. Soak up some of that wisdom. Try.
I do think that the NIHR Nursing and Midwifery Office is really embracing social care nursing, and there's development opportunities beyond the ones that I'm creating for social care nurses to kind of get their foot on the ladder. There's real opportunities for them to develop and grow as clinicians, as researchers, however they want their career to take them. And I think social care research more broadly is getting a better airing now than it did. So I think that recognition that, if we can, if we're talking about integrated services, if we're talking about health and social care being integrated, then we need to understand both parts of the jigsaw, not just one. And we need to shift that power. So social care nurses are really well placed to start to challenge the status quo in that area and be really informative to those doing the research.
The change makers.
Yes, absolutely. Disruptors.
Yeah.
Not like me, I'm disruptive, apparently.
Well, I guess I'm conscious that there might be some social care nurses listening who have they're thinking about getting involved in research, they're kind of interested in it, but they have no idea about what funding or grants might be accessible or beneficial as at that kind of starting point, I guess. I'm not sure if you have any insight.
I think, first of all, I'm always open to people contacting me and asking me, because there's such a whole range of opportunities out there. It's really difficult to identify what might be the right fit for everybody. And I think as time goes on and we get more of these social care nurses in the champion and intern roles, there will be, there'll be almost be that community that starts to develop where you can kind of go to someone perhaps in your area that is more research active. But I think it is about reaching out. The NIHR website has quite a lot of information. It's not always easiest to find, but we will be having some bespoke social care pages for the whole of NIHR, not just the Nursing and Midwifery Office, that are being pulled together as we speak. But the Nursing and Midwifery Office is always happy to be contacted by nurses from any background. And I've got some amazing colleagues there who will always try and support and enable those nurses to find opportunities. We do manage a coffee and catch up with our Professor Ruth Endicott does a coffee and catch up every month, and that's open to all nurses from all backgrounds to come in, and literally it's very, as a team we'll often be there, and nurses will come in and ask about what they might want to do, and that there are lots of mentors out there, but I think there is, reach out to people beyond your normal sphere, perhaps see if there's any open days at your local HEI. If you work in a particular speciality, look at some of the charities that have research arms. There's lots and lots to get involved in, but again, it depends very much on what it is you want to do and what you want to achieve. Not everyone wants to be a clinical academic or a research delivery nurse, but some people just want to feel better informed in their practice, and that's okay. It's there's room for everybody, all shapes and sizes. I have to say, NIHR Learn does have some fabulous free resources that people can sign up to. And the RCN is now looking at having some more accessible research materials. So it's out there, but if you're not sure where you want to go, as I said, you're always welcome to come to the Nursing and Midwifery office and see what we can do to help.
Oh, it's amazing. Thank you. And I'll link as much of this as I can on the website.
Please,
with the podcast.
I will send you lots of links, particularly around the awards and so I would certainly advocate for those nurses who might be interested in those internships and champions roles. Go onto the NHR NMO website, sign up to our newsletter and alerts, because those opportunities will be coming very soon. And what we will be doing is finding different routes to cascade that information. So using perhaps trusted intermediaries such as Skills for Care and, the RCN and other local partners such as the Social Care Nursing Advisory Councils to get that information where it needs to go.
Amazing, thank you. So I guess looking to the future, or thinking about the future, what is the kind of long-term goal, I guess, really, to create a pipeline of nurses who are leaders, research active, or supported to be research active if they so desire, and kind of really pushing forward thinkers in the field? Is this what we're
this is absolutely what we're aspiring to do. Absolutely. I think we recognise that social care nurses are very underrepresented and underserved in research development opportunities. I am meeting more and more social care nurses who are doing PhDs. Many of them are funding themselves because they've not known the funding route. There's some incredibly dedicated and amazing clinicians out there and social care nurses who are absolutely nailing this. But what we need to do is make them more visible and give them the opportunities to have a platform and a voice. And this is where, as I said, I think HEIs have a big place to play in that. We need more role models, we need more visibility, but we need to strengthen the confidence and competence of the nurses to come through. And yeah, absolutely. I want to be able to retire, and there are, hundreds of social care nurses out there with a really strong voice. Yeah, absolutely. And the good news is I've got a little while till I retire, so my aspirations are very realistic. But yeah, I just think I'd always say to people is, what do you think you need? What background do you think you need to be? Like I said, I started in domiciliary care. I'm very, very proud of that. I wasn't a natural academic. I was a diploma nurse. And I struggled to do my diploma, I have to be honest. And then as I said, I found my passion. My passion was older people. It was dementia. And then I channeled my energy through my master's and my PhD into that passion. And, there are a lot of passionate nurses out there who absolutely could follow in my footsteps and probably chase right in front of me because they have the capability. I do not consider myself one of the most intelligent people. It's not a mark of intelligence. It's about that commitment and curiosity and really wanting to make a difference, and that's in abundance in social care.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, amazing. Thanks so much. It's really exciting to think about what research will look like, I think, when you have conversations like this about talking about what it should look like makes you excited for what it could look like. Much more collaborative. And like you say, it is the researching with social care that is just so critical, isn't it? To push it forward, really, to make change that matters, I think.
And we've got some really great examples of that happening. I mean, Salford's doing some great work with social care nursing. You've got other universities. Leeds, for example, does a fantastic program called Niche Leeds, where they, the academics and the care staff really work in partnership. So, the academic linking pins engage with the care home staff to find out what's important to them, and then the care home staff tell the academics, and advise them and support them in some of their formation of ideas. So it's much more collaborative, and I think that's the way we've got to see this. Is it's got to be more collaborative, and you know, social care environments are not living labs for academics to come in and do their work and then go out. You know, that they are people's homes often. You know, and it's an environment where there needs to be far more of a partnership and collaborative approach.
Yeah, for sure. Amazing, thanks, Zena. Is there anything we've not chatted about that's still a burning
Well,
desire to get across?
as I told you, Siobhan, I'm like a little. Once you wind me up, I'm like. I guess one of the things that I would like to get across is if there are nurses out there who are research active, working in social care, but feel isolated, you know, do get in touch, because what would be great is if we can pull a community of practice together, because there's strength in numbers. And I think, you know, that peer support is incredibly valuable no matter where you work and what you're doing. And I think if you feel like you're the odd one out, or there's no one like you in your area that, you know, you can kind of connect with and just kind of decompress with, I think that's harsh. So I think that there's certainly scope for us to think about how do we link people up as well, so that we get a little community of practice going. Or hopefully a very big community of practice.
Massive one, yeah.
You never know. Yeah.
And what's the best way to contact you, Zena? I'll pop it on the website as well, but just in case.
Yeah, if they pop my email address in, so it's zena.aldridge. You've got it anyway at nihr.ac.uk. Or they can go. I can send you the nursing and midwifery office email as well, because then it won't get lost if it ends up in my mailbox. And then I'll send you the link as well for the nursing and midwifery office website, so that people can sign up for that and for the awards. Because you know, the other thing is we do lots of events where you know, nurses can come and attend for free, but again, often if they haven't signed up to our newsletters and things like that, they don't find out about it.
Yeah.
So we're definitely getting better at cascading via sort of trusted intermediaries, but you know, there's still a lot more to do.
Yeah, pushing that message out. Amazing. Thanks so much, Zena.
That's all right.